This lesson is on 6.3 integration by parts. So by integration by parts, we have to take the integration of a function and then we're going to set it equal to u times v minus the integration of v du. Okay? So we have to set up in something like this format right here. We have to find what the u is. The remaining part of that integration part of the function will become the dv. So in this side right here, we take the derivative of that, and then on this side right here, we take the integration. So we have to do two things at once right here. Okay? So once we are done with that, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to multiply the u times v, which is this part right here, and then it's always minus on the formula, but obviously this can change depending on the product of that v and the du part of it. Okay, and then so then minus the integration of, and then we multiply v times du, which is this part right here. Okay, so this is the setup that we're always going to use when we do integration by parts. Now the tricky part is actually selecting what u is, finding u. So to figure that out, there's an acronym that I use for finding u, and it's called the Lipid Method. So Lipid because it's L-I-P-E-T. So if you have an ln function, that's the priority that you're going to use to find what u is. If it's not ln, then it's an inverse trig, which is then usually the arcsine, arccosine, or arctangent. Now normally this is not very common at this level that we have, so don't worry about this too much. The polynomial is everything that we've always had. So if it's x to the third, x to the fourth, or any exponents, that's usually polynomial. So that's what we want to choose if it's polynomial first. Or exponential, which is like the e to the x. So if it's e to the x, that would be another thing that we would choose. And then the trig function, which is known as the sine, cosine, tangent, etc. Okay? So the difference between this is the arc, which is that -1, and then this is the regular one. That's the only difference between that. So again, this is priority. So if it's not ln, you go through each of these processes to see which one is first. So whichever one is first, that's what your u is going to become. The remaining part of it becomes dv, and then you should be able to multiply across and over. Alright, so let's try an example then. So I'm going to call this example 1, and we have as the integration of 2x squared times the sine x dx. Okay, so this is what it looks like, where you have a function and it's almost like two parts together right here put together. So within that two parts, you have to decide which is the u part of it, and then what's the remaining part for your dv part of it. Okay, so right away, this right here is a polynomial, right? Because that's going to be your exponential right there, x to the second power, etc. This part right here is the trig part of it, right? That's our common, the sine, cosine, etc. So going through the lipid process, right? It's not an ln, neither one of those is ln, so I don't have to worry about that. It's not an inverse trig, but I do have a polynomial and I do have a trig. So polynomial comes first and then the trig. So since polynomial comes first, that's going to become my u right there. So that's how you're going to determine what is your u. So here's my u then. U is going to become 2x squared, and then my dv, which is the remaining part of it, the integration of sine x, that's going to become my dv part of it. So whatever's left over, that's this part right here. Okay? So du, we're going to take the integration of that, or I'm sorry, the derivative of that. So that's going to give us what? 4x dx. So get in the habit of doing that dx, kind of like what we did with the u sub part of it. And then this part right here, we're actually going to take the integration. So if you remember, integration of sine is up here, up on integration, so that's going to become negative cosine, right? Negative cosine x, okay? So we're going to do exactly the same as what we did up there. So we're going to multiply across and over to figure out what the final product becomes. So this becomes equals, and then we have to write it up just like this format right here, okay? So then we have is then 2x squared, because that's what my multiplication right here. Oh, but we have a negative, so let's go ahead and put that negative in the front right there. And then I have as a cosine x, so here is cosine x, minus, and only minus because that's the formula that's up here. Okay? The integration of, and then the next part. So again, this is the negative right there, so this is going to cause this to become positive, because that's negative times negative will make it positive. So then we multiply across or over right here. So we multiply over, so that's going to give us 4x times cosine x, and then that dx part right there, that's going to remind me that to put the dx right there. Okay? Now, we're actually not done with this integration part right here, because if you notice, this is not done. So I need to do this again, and we have to do by parts again to figure out what that is. Our goal of here is the integration is to make it into a simple integration like we did in chapter 5. Okay, so we're going to have to do that on the side again. So we have the u again, du, and then we have the dv, and then the v. So what's easy the second time around is because if I already know that 2x squared was the u, then obviously 4x is going to become my u right here. And then the remaining, which is the integration of cosine x, right, dx, is going to become my dv right there. So derivative of 4x becomes 4 dx. The integration of cosine, because remember cosine's here, so it has to go up. So then that becomes the sine of x, okay? So we're going to multiply across and over again, same rule right there. So now here's where we have to pay attention right here. So it's going to be equal to, I'm going to copy my negative 2x squared cosine x plus, and this is the integration that we actually did, so this is the part that we're going to substitute, okay? So I'm going to put a little bracket right here just to remind me that this is where it's going to come in. Okay, so if I multiply it across, which is then to 4x, so that becomes the 4x sine x minus, because again, that's the formula, and then the integration of this part right here, right, the over part of it. So this is negative again in this case because sine was positive in this case, okay? So 4, so I'm going to just put the 4 in the front because that's a number, sine x, and then dx right there, okay? So now we're down to a simple integration part right here. So again, but we're still not done with this, so we do have to take another step to get that simple integration done. Once the integration symbol is done, then that's when you know you're finished with this problem. Because I know one of the process of doing by parts is how do I know when I'm done? So when you're done with this integration, you have no integration symbol, then that's when you're done. So this is when it's really important that you put the integration symbol, because then if you don't know if you finished the problem or not, if you have not put the integration symbol. Okay, so let's go ahead and distribute this. Normally I would have a number or a negative right here, then I would have to distribute it into the brackets right here, but since it's a positive, it's not going to affect anything, so I'm just going to rewrite this and then finish up that integration part of it. So then it becomes negative 2x squared cosine x plus 4x sine x minus 4, and then I just take the integration. Now this is to do this part right here, I always do the integration of negative sign because that makes it easier. You can actually just take the integration of sine and then deal with the negative sign at the end. But if I just go negative sign right there, I know I'm down here. In integration, you're going up, so that's going to become positive cosine. So then I just go positive cosine x right there. And since I'm done with it, so I just go plus c right there. Okay? So then we're done with that problem right there. So again, let me walk you through that problem right there. So we have then is again 2x squared, and then we have a sine x right there. We had to choose between one of those to be my u, and to figure out which is your u, use the acronym of the lipid. So go through the process of lipid right there and see which is first. So in our case, polynomial comes before the trig function right there. So since p comes before t, then my p right there, which is the 2x squared, was what was chosen as my u. The next part is that sine x, that's the remaining part of it, so that's my dv part of it right here, okay? So then we take the derivative of this, we take the integration of this part right here, and then we cross multiply and over. So when we cross multiply over, that became negative, right, because of the negative sign right there, 2x squared times cosine x, and then multiplied over, which is then, normally it's a minus right there because that's the rule right there, but because this negative right there, it became actually positive right there, okay? Then we have is the integration of 4x times cosine x right there. All right, so now we have to do it again because, again, this part right here, it needs to be a simple integration. If it's not simple integration, we have to do it again. So by parts again, we did it on the side right there. So you may have to do that little parts on the side. You may want to just fold your paper in half or something like that, or a little bit on the side, so that way you can do your parts on the side right here. So then we have again is the 4x, and then we have is the cosine x this time, so positive cosine x because this is positive right there. And then I take the integration on this part, and I take the derivative on this part. We multiply across and over again. So I copy all of this part right here, which is this. I copy the plus, But this is the integration, the actual integration. So the actual integration product was this right here. So we multiplied across, which is that gave us the 4x sine x, and then minus, because the formula, and then we multiply it over, which is this part right here. And then from there, I just had one more step because I need to do a simple integration for that part. So we just took that and did a simple integration, gave us 4. Negative sign again gives us positive cosine, and then the plus c because we're done with the product. Okay, so try these problems, and again, go back and use that lipid right there to help us to find u, because it's all about u, so you got to make sure you select the right u.